as they join. But welcome along to this morning's Location Data Scotland Innovation and Collaboration Funding webinar. So just to get things started, a little bit of housekeeping. If I could just ask everyone to turn off your cameras and microphones. We will start recording the session, so it just makes things easier for the video playback if we've only got the speakers on view, and we can avoid any background noise. So cameras off and microphones off, please. We'll also encourage you to use the chat box facility within Microsoft Teams. So use this as a means to introduce your business, to explain a wee bit about what you want to achieve from joining today's webinar, and also to give us an indication of the types of connections that you would like to make, and we can follow that up and facilitate introductions and connections accordingly for you. Likewise, please also use the chat box to drop in any comments or raise any questions, and one of the team will raise that with the speakers. You'll see from the agenda that we don't have a formal Q&A as part of the agenda today. That's just in the interest of time because we only have the hour and a half. So if you do have any specific questions, then drop them into the chat box and we can raise those with the speakers. So just to get started, to give you a flavour of what's going to be happening this morning. So I'll give a very quick overview of Location Data Scotland. Many of you will already be familiar with the work that we're doing, but for those that are new to the community, I'll give a kind of overview of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve within Location Data Scotland. We'll then move on to our 3 expert speakers, and we'll hear from them in terms of the available support and the pipeline of funding and the opportunities that exist. And then the final section of this morning's webinar is looking at how best to prepare a funding application. So the panellists will share some of their top tips with you. So the whole idea and the aim of this morning's webinar is to allow us to explore innovation and collaboration funding opportunities, both within Scotland and the UK, but also internationally as well. There'll be an opportunity for you to receive guidance and support. As I say, the panellists will share top tips towards the end of the webinar on how best to prepare an application. But another important part of that is also about building consortiums of partners and how best to go about identifying partners, and LDS can also help you to identify and connect with potential collaborative partners that may be of interest. And finally, like all of our LDS events, this is an opportunity for you to network. So as I say, use the chat box, introduce yourself and your organisation in there. Use today's session not only to get information on the funding opportunities, but also use today as an opportunity to identify opportunities to collaborate, partners, and simply connect with the wider LDS community and the members that we have within it. So what is Location Data Scotland? We are an inclusive geospatial community across Scotland. We're aiming to unlock the value of location data. We were created to try to leverage location data as an enabler of innovation. We want to use location data to create greater efficiencies in products and services that are delivered both within the private sector, but also within the public sector in Scotland. We've got a lovely shiny website, and you can find out lots more information not only about Location Data Scotland but also about our events. And there's also a resources section in there which has got some fantastic industry reports and case studies that might be of interest to you. So that's locationdatascotland.com. In terms of the aims, as I say, we were established to unlock the value of location data. But our main aim is to build this community, to bring both public, private, third and academic sectors together, and we can help you to connect, inform and facilitate collaborations right across those. It's a multi-sector community that we're building. We want to showcase the potential applications of geospatial across a range of sectors. It's about driving innovation, unlocking skills and enabling both economic growth but also business growth for yourselves as being part of the community. We have facilitated a number of connections and enabled collaborations already. So we're just finishing year 2 of Location Data Scotland, and we're just about to move into year 3, having just recently been awarded more funding to take us into the 3rd year. So that will happen in October. But to date, we've been able to really touch and add value to many of the businesses that are part of LDS so far. For example, GSI, Global Surface Intelligence, they came along to one of our close meetings back in November, we had visits from the Geospatial Commission. The commissioners were visiting Scottish Government, and we brought Peter along to allow him to showcase what GSI do and what their products and services are. And since then, they've formed such a close relationship with the Commission that they were featured in the latest strategy as a case study. So we've been able to kind of open up opportunities for businesses like GSI. And likewise, Aaron from Vahonomy is a startup business within Scotland, and we've been able to not only bring him into the LDS community, but bring him into the wider business ecosystem within Scotland and open doors for him and help him to form a number of network connections that can help him to build his business and really establish Vahonomy in Scotland. One of the key focuses of the last 2 years, and it will remain a focus going into year 3, because it really is the foundation, it's at the heart of everything that we're doing in Location Data Scotland, is about building this data directory. We want to create a directory that can bring together both supply and demand. At the moment, this is an internal resource. There is intentions that towards the end of year 3 that this will be made a public resource. But for now, we would encourage you, if you're not already, to get your business and organisation listed in it. It's entirely free. Once you're listed in the directory, we build a profile. The team at LDS form a relationship with you. We get a better understanding of your organisation and what your needs are. And based on that profile, we can then use the directory to help you to find customers or to find suppliers, to connect you with potential collaborative partners. And we can also use the directory to, as I say, get a better understanding of what your needs are in order to be able to signpost you to wider assistance. And that might be wider business support, it could be funding and opportunities. So if you haven't already, then please go and visit locationdatascotland.com and sign up to the directory there. At the moment, we've got about 90 organisations listed in the directory, and that, as I say, is very much cross-sectoral. The graphic that's been shown just now really kind of demonstrates the breadth and the cross-sectoral nature of the community that we're building. It's very much about showcasing the potential applications of geospatial right across a range of sectors, and the directory is really starting to build and portray that cross-sectoral nature. So if you haven't already, then please do go and register. In terms of the work that we've done to date and the types of connections and introductions that we've facilitated, I just want to give you a bit of a flavour. So at the moment, there's probably over 40 now connections and introductions, and they've varied from peer-to-peer connections. So that's us organising introductions, organisations to one another to enable them to share best practice or to explore collaborative opportunities. Likewise, it's connecting end users. So that goes back to what I was saying around the directory being about bringing supply and demand together. So we've been able to connect suppliers to a number of potential end users. And likewise, it's about enabling access to data sets. So we can introduce organisations to data providers, and that will allow you to get a better understanding of potential data sets that you don't already have sight of or are perhaps not already familiar with. But just to kind of reiterate again, another testimonial is really about Location Data Scotland can be instrumental in helping to open up networks and open doors to other sectors that you might not already be working with. In terms of the signposting side of our work, obviously today, the webinar today is very much focusing on the innovation, the funding side of things, and that is something that we've done since the beginning of Location Data Scotland. So we have signposted organisations to both UK funding and also European funding. We've got a partnership with Aerospace Valley out in France, and we've had a number of networking and matchmaking events there as well. But more broadly, we can signpost you to support organisations, and that might be introductions into, for example, Scottish Enterprise or SDI, or it could be to innovation support, so through the innovation centres, for example, to facilitate R&D. More broadly, we also do recruitment signposting, so we share vacancies and job opportunities. So there's a whole range of services that we can offer to help you, but you need to be part of the community. So we'd encourage you all, again, sign up to the Location Data Scotland directory, and once you're there, we can really build that relationship and begin to support you and add value to your organisation. So just building on this signposting role. I really want to kind of get stuck into the webinar today and hear from our expert panelists. So just to start things off, our first speaker for this morning is Carol Sunderland from Innovate UK. Carol leads on cross-sectoral geospatial applications within Innovate UK, and she's going to share this morning some of the support that's available from Innovate UK. Carol, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Ashley, and hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Innovate UK group and the types of support we offer, and I'll then follow with a few examples of geospatial developments in different sectors that have already been funded, but in order to demonstrate the extent of future potential opportunities. Firstly, I'd like to define very broadly what we mean by innovation. Next slide, please, Ashley. So, what do we mean by innovation? Innovation is essentially, it's the process of taking new ideas and research to the marketplace. It's the development of a new solution that addresses a specific challenge or a defined problem. It results in a new product or a process or a service, and it delivers value to the user stroke customer. And also that means it generates a market. Now that might be potentially on an international, if not a global scale. Next slide, please. And innovation is so important because it drives productivity, exports, job creation, and overall economic growth. It also helps solve and address the impact of societal and also environmental challenges. So where does Innovate UK fit in and what do we offer? Next slide, please. Innovate UK is the UK-wide innovation agency. So we support business-led innovation in all sectors, technologies and UK regions. We also help enable collaboration, which is often really important for innovation. This is within the UK and in some cases internationally via our international programmes. And we're a key delivery body of the UK government's innovation strategy. Next slide, please. So Innovate UK is part of UK Research and Innovation, commonly known as UKRI. This is an independent organisation and it brings together 7 research councils, including the Natural Environment Research Council, also important for geospatial data, and that is together with Research England and Innovate UK. Innovate itself helps drive growth by encouraging commercially driven research and development, and by helping the businesses to develop and realise the potential of new ideas, including those, of course, from the UK's research base. Next slide, please. So our activities and support can essentially be distilled into 3 areas, and those can be summarised by these words. So that is to inspire, so defining the opportunity, making that opportunity visible and compelling. And then to involve, so that's bringing relevant organisations and people together. That is within the UK and also internationally. And of course, it's to invest, and that's what we mean in terms of convening resources. So those are resources of our own, but also of others. Now that can involve grants, loans, and sometimes also attracting private investment for match funding. So this support is delivered through different parts of Innovate UK. Next slide, please. So the core part of Innovate UK provides funding and support for innovative projects. Funding awards are based on a competition model with independent assessment in order to help the best ideas get funding. And then there is Innovate UK KTN, and they provide connections to new partners and opportunities. And Innovate UK Edge, and they essentially provide support for growth and also for scale up. Both of those divisions also help develop visits to particular countries, as I've mentioned, to enable innovation partnerships with organisations based overseas. And then there is the Catapult network, and that offers specialist facilities and experts in particular technology areas. And this support and the associated facilities are UK-wide. Next slide, please. So we support innovative businesses across every region in the UK, and of course that includes Scotland. In Scotland, there is a dedicated regional manager called Bob Martin, and a team of people from both Innovate UK, KTN and Innovate Edge, who are based in Scotland to provide support specifically to organisations based in Scotland. In terms of the geospatial sector, there is also a KTN UK-wide lead, and that is Luca Budello. Next slide, please. So to just demonstrate the spread of funding, I think this map is quite interesting. So since 2007, Innovate UK has provided organisations in Scotland with a total grant value of 389 million. If we look at it in terms of how that spreads potentially across every business, the map will show that the opportunity then for each business is actually fairly or comparatively great in Scotland versus some of the other regions in the UK. If we look at the actual average award in terms of those who've actually participated in funding and applications, we see that 389 million breaks down into about an average award of 176,000 per participant. So that's just to give you a feel for what has already been awarded. And of course, the opportunity is for more in the future. So next slide, please. So looking at how we actually support geospatial innovation. Geospatial innovation includes technology developments related to geospatial data generation and/or geospatial data application. And the need for precise and immediate location information and situational insight about assets, resources, vehicles, and people is becoming increasingly relevant to a wide range of sectors. And at the same time, the advances in some underpinning technologies are also enabling the potential for geospatial innovation. So geospatial developments can benefit from funding in a range of related technology areas, application areas or sectors, and various responsive or generic programs. I should stress, however, that these opportunities do depend on the respective scope of the specific competitions published. So to demonstrate the extent of the opportunity, I'd like to just mention a few example developments in different sectors that Innovate have already funded. Many of these developments were collaborative, but for brevity, I just reference the solution provider. So firstly, agriculture is a major sector for geospatial developments. Innovation in this sector is enabling all sorts of capabilities, including offering insights into crop and pasture management, animal tracking, virtual fencing, autonomous tractors, and a lot more. It also enables more sustainable farming. So an example development here is one that involved the development of advanced crop analytics, and this was led by Hummingbird Technologies, and their solutions involve using remote sensing imagery and sophisticated AI to detect crop issues at an individual plant level. This, of course, enables more informed decision-making, targeted use of pesticide, yield prediction, and verification of sustainable farming. Next slide, please. Another couple of significant sectors for geospatial developments are maritime and port logistics. So here, the digital revolution combining with advancing geospatial intelligence are starting to enable cleaner, more efficient, agile and better regulated maritime industry, as well as increasing efficiencies in port logistics and marine environmental monitoring. So an example of funding in these sectors is the development of near real-time maritime situational intelligence through AI and Earth observation data by Sirius Insight. And this enables risk management of vessel sanction breaches, the visualization and quantification of insurance risk, and automated monitoring of vessel safety and security. And then, of course, there are the construction and infrastructure sectors. Next slide, please. So again, advances in geospatial intelligence are enabling cost savings, productivity gains, infrastructure, resilience and safety improvement. And an example here of a development that we funded was that led by EarthEye for the development of a proactive risk monitoring solution for construction and infrastructure such as road, rail, ports and pipelines. And their AI-driven analytics using data from remote sensing and terrestrial sources provide change detection and risk alerts to help prevent or reduce costs from construction delays and asset failure. And then, of course, there is the transport sector. Next slide, please. So if we look at rail in particular, and just as an example, the need for precise and cost-effective train positioning is stimulating a number of positioning system developments. So Reliable Data Systems International, for example, received funding to develop a virtual transponder for trains in a front-facing windscreen-mounted camera for optical recognition of the view from the front of the train. So this aims to provide a precise, lower-cost approach to train positioning and reduces the need for expensive physical infrastructure. So these are just a few examples of sectors in which geospatial developments have been funded. There are also other examples in sectors such as smart cities and many others. And there are also examples of funding for geospatial solutions in more generic and responsive programs. So for example, in response to COVID, next slide, please. Geospatial intelligence has been proving vital to society in this respect. And shortly after the start of the pandemic, Innovate UK funded some short, fast developments to help address the challenges. And this included a range of geospatial developments listed here. A number of these, as you'll see, are valuable mapping and tracking developments. There are also examples from our international programs. So the range of opportunities really is increasing, and I would encourage everyone to look at that scope and width of opportunities. So in summary, and looking to the future, growth is increasingly critical for the UK, and geospatial innovation can contribute quite significantly to this. Innovate UK has launched a plan for action for UK business innovation to support the innovation strategy. And this has a vision for the UK to become the global hub for innovation by 2035. So please keep an eye on our competitions webpage for opportunities. And to conclude, please do look at relevant technology and sector areas, as well as cross-cutting and generic programmes for competitions that may be relevant to your innovation. Please also reach out to the Innovate UK KTN and Innovate Edge if you need connections or support. And finally, the next slide, please. This is my email address if you wish to contact me. So thank you very much, and I'll now hand back to Ashley.
That's great. Thank you very much, Carol, for sharing that insight from Innovate UK. I think the key message there is when you're looking for funding opportunities, look across the sectors and more generically, rather than looking purely for a geospatial call, for example. I think the the case examples that Carol's highlighted, and if you go to the competitions page, which will be shared in the chat box, the opportunities will become clear there in terms of it's the application of geospatial rather than it being a geospatial call per se. So I think that's a really important and valuable message for organisations. That's super. Thank you very much, Carol. We will now move on to our next speaker, and that is Ken Gordon. Ken is a European Space Agency Space Solutions Business Ambassador for the UK. So Ken, I'll invite you to come up and present the opportunities from ESA.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's nice to be here. I hope everyone can hear me from, I'm coming into you from Norway, Netherlands today. What is European Space Agency? Well, it's the largest space innovation network in the world. It's the place that you go to for businesses to take advantage of space opportunities, to support the problems that we have in everyday life. And we support startups, we support SMEs to develop businesses using space technology and space data. And we offer funding, which is why we're here today, for businesses as well as technical support to help you generate your successful business and create jobs. Next slide, please, Ashley. Thank you. Today here in Nordwijk, we've been doing all sorts of discussions and having lots of meetings. But again, in the ESA Space Solutions, which is the part of ESA I am part of, we support. We promote space applications and services to a wide range of customers, and that really is every sector, not the space sector. My focus is talking to everybody else. There's a lot of time spent talking about what we do because lots of people don't know what we do, although space is really cool. And we support the development of new operational services, some of which I'll just mention in a minute, to help clients and customers engage with space organizations, particularly ESA, if they have a product that's relevant. And as a spoiler, if you're thinking, I heard the word funding just a minute ago, as a spoiler, for the next slide probably, for your project to be funded, you must have at least one space asset. There's a full list later, and that includes space comms, Earth observation, as well as sat-nav. So if you've got sat-nav GPS in your project or your future project or product development, you are eligible, provided there's a couple more things. And we spend a lot of time connecting people with other bits of ESA. So yesterday we had meetings that discussed the lunar economy. Now, this may sound really far-fetched, and it does feel like you're living in science fiction sometimes, but we're talking about there is money now for companies that are looking to help develop the circular economy on the moon, as well as lunar comms, GPS for the moon, as well as more terrestrial things like 5G and 6G. So if any of these are interesting, I'll pop my contact details right at the end. Get in touch. I'm here to help you communicate. Next slide, please, Ashley. Thank you. Yes, what we're looking for are projects that solve problems for which there is a market demand, a commercial opportunity. So we do not, in this part of ESA, support research and technology development. We support, if you know the TRL range, and you don't have to, we support things around about TRL 4 or 5 or above. You must be using existing space capabilities, and you can submit a project entirely on your own. You don't have to be in a consortium. If you do want to be in a consortium, that's fine. And it's all about helping develop sustainable services to solve the problem. So simply put, if you have a problem and you're using space tech and there is an identifiable commercial opportunity there, those are the three main things that you need to be eligible for our funding. And there's an even better thing next, because our funding is applied for through a very short application form. More later. Next slide, please, Ashley. What kind of space technologies are we talking about? Well, on the left-hand side is the list of normal things that people apply for, but basically it can be any space technology. We've had people interested in using the sounds from other planets, which are recorded and available for free, as well as all sorts of algorithms that are already used in the space program. But generally, people who apply for projects are using either space weather, Earth observation, satellite navigation, satellite comms, and human spaceflight technologies. So, for example, I had an inquiry about the flange material used in spacesuits. So it can really be anything. We are applying to everything on the right side. Our projects, we will fund projects that are in all of these sectors: maritime, healthcare, transport. And really the lovely thing about this job is that I am talking to people in all these sectors, and you always learn interesting things about a sector that you didn't really know. Normally, a successful project will also include something from the middle column, but not always. So these are just examples. Please do not let this slide discourage you if you have a project that has a problem to be solved, commercialization opportunity, and it uses space technology. But often people will include VR, AR. We've had a lot of game applications in the last year, provided it's a serious game in solving a problem. Cybersecurity, blockchain, even quantum. And I'll be honest, I don't know how many times I've had quantum explained to me. It's not really sinking in very, very well. So if you have a product or a service that solves a problem, uses space tech, and has a well identified commercial opportunity, I know that you're now saying, goodness me, how do I get to the money now? I have all these three things. Next slide, please, Ashley. Right, we have the most popular of our three funding sources, the open call. Good news, it's permanently open. There are no deadlines. Every Thursday, applications are examined and evaluated. Still good news, no deadlines. It does mean no deadlines means you've got to still get it done, because having a deadline sometimes forces activity. We provide 50% match funding in the UK. Don't be misled by our website, which is ESA. Where our website is business.esa.int. Don't be discouraged by the fact that some of those other countries offer more money or less money. We offer 50% of your project value. Two types of projects are supported under what we call open call or direct negotiation. They are feasibility studies, and that tends to be a project that lasts less than 9 months. And there is a budget cap on that of €250K for the whole project. Whole project value. So 50% of that you will get. Feasibility study projects are a bit earlier in their process, and we also fund what we call demonstration projects, a bit further along in the process. There is no time limit or budget cap. On average, budgets are below €2 million, and projects are usually less than 24 months. But the period of time and the budget required really depends on the project. And you can have a feasibility study that leads to a demonstration project, or you can just apply for a demonstration project. It's up to you. As I said before, any topic, any time, and ESA does not want any IP from this, so it's zero equity. You also get a personalized ESA consultant, which at the beginning is me, and then once your project gets funded, you will have a technical officer giving you technical and commercial guidance all the way through. And you will get, as a successful applicant, access to our exclusive network of investors, and they have meetings a couple of times a year with investment organizations just to try and help your business even further along the line. And you get to use the brand, you get to use the ESA brand on your product. And if any of that is still interesting to you, please remember to contact me. So that's the open call. Next slide, please, Ashley. Thank you very much. We also have Kickstart activities supported in the UK. Currently, there are none supported, but Kickstart activities, when they are around, are funded at 75% and have a 60K limit per project. They come out very thematically and very quickly. Currently, there are no hot ones, if you like. I talked about the competitive tenders and the feasibility studies. Closing this month, then we have things called ITTs or calls, which are short-term thematic competitions. There might be just one winner, there might be two winners. Just a heads up, closing in 2 days. If you have a project and you have been drafted, you've drafted your application and you're holding all the way to the end 2 days before deadline. These do have deadlines. We currently have space for tourism, space and digital transformation for green energy utilities, the NHS Future Hospitals Initiative, and digital supply chain. I apologise for that slide being somewhat askew. So these are closing in 2 days. talk to me if you're struggling to get the things done in time, or indeed, if you have a project, you look at any of those titles and you say, actually, I have a project, but I haven't got time. Don't worry, you can still apply through Open Call. So there's the good news for you. Any of these subjects, if you have a project, talk to me, you can apply through Open Call. Next slide, please, Ashley. Yes, to expand on the competitive tenders, then the competitions, and remembering that these are 50%, Kickstart is 75%, Open Call is 50%. These are the current ones running, and again, apologies for it looks like the formatting's gone a bit weird. We currently have these ones opened. There is a new one since I did this slide, I think, yeah, and digital transformation in the green economy. There's a lot of green competitions around. You can read this. I don't like wordy slides. This is a wordy slide. We currently have long-running competitions running for things like Space for Rail, and a new one for the Olympic Games. And not being a sporty person in the conventional sense, I'll leave that there. Yeah, covering all aspects of preparation for the next Olympic Games, including preparation, including athlete health, and including remediation after the Olympic Games. It's a very wide open call and very interesting. It's gained a lot of inquiries. Check that out. Get in touch with me if you want more information. Ashley, next slide, please. Thank you very much. I guess this could be self-explanatory. I said at the very beginning there's a very short application. Well, the starting point for this is a questionnaire. There is a longer application, but the first part is 9 pages, of which you fill out 8. I help you fill out those 8 pages and give you advice on guidance on my experience of seeing successful and unsuccessful applications. But your APQ is only 8 pages, and that's where you're outlining your ideas, your rationale, your ability to deliver the project, talking about the space asset, talking about the commercialization opportunity, and the problem that you're going to solve. And that is your starting point. Every Thursday they get looked at. If the organization, if the evaluators like it, you'll get invited to a pitch meeting, which happens once a month. And you do an online pitch for 15 minutes about your project. We talk a lot about it beforehand and prepare you for that beforehand. If the evaluators like your pitch, you then get invited to fill out an outline proposal, about 30 pages. This is where the writing has to start, but the activity pitch questionnaire goes into that, so you're not writing all of it fresh. An outline proposal, which again fleshes out more detail, and then finally, an outline proposal and full proposal writing are supported by a technical officer, which wouldn't be me, but probably somebody I know. And then the outline proposal leads to a full proposal. Again, each piece fits into the next one, so you're not writing something fresh every time. Full proposal is a longer proposal, but it's about, I think, 90 pages, but you're asking for usually quite a lot of money. But the good news is that right at that beginning, when you've got the activity pitch questionnaire, once it's been accepted and then you've gone to pitch and they like your pitch, they will set the budget aside for you. So essentially you're doing the big writing, knowing that if this all works out, the money's there. There's no further, it's going to happen, which I like. Next slide, please, Ashley. A couple of examples, a few examples I've stuck at the end here. You will find if you go to business.esa.int and go up to the top and click on portfolio, you will find a whole bunch of, not all the projects we've funded, because very often a project that has recently been funded won't be there because projects run for a while before they're published. So Isolation Plus came out of ESA BIC, which is our business incubation centre. Remember I said we support startups. We do that in Scotland through the ESA BIC, which is based in Edinburgh at the observatory, and there's BICs in other parts of the UK. It uses satellite and ground data to produce new insights at looking at granular mapping level to look at hidden vulnerable people and to empower local organizations to reach out to them. So we are using space to find people who are at risk, and particularly during COVID, this was a big issue. How do we identify where lonely people are or people who are on their own that might need help from social services? A really fantastic company based in Scotland that developed this. Next slide, please, Ashley. Thank you very much. Fusion Platform, another Scottish applicant. demonstration, an automated solution that provides different price and performance options to agriculture companies and corporates for weed detection and frost damage detection and yield prediction, as well as biomass estimation based on imagery and algorithms and data. This is being sold across the world. So again, a great demonstration of another sector. Agriculture is full of fantastic uses for space tech. I didn't know until quite recently that pretty much every agricultural item is tracked, has a GPS tracker stuck on it. And so there's all sorts of opportunities around there for the optimization of agriculture and hopefully the making things more efficient. Next slide, please, Ashley. Finally, Craft Prospect in Edinburgh, augmented quantum key distribution. As I said before, the whole quantum thing, zoom. But there is an awful lot of work and focused on quantum comms via satellites. This project is demonstrated very early on that you can use satellites to develop and send cryptographic keys. The key thing now will be ESA is developing a project actually to, I think it's a test project, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's going to distribute quantum keys on a continuous basis. The idea being that you will continually track a satellite with a high power laser to keep comms going via laser across the world. This is where we are going. That means the internet will be available in everywhere. Whether that's a good thing, you could decide. Those are 3 examples. Please check out the website. Next slide, please, Ashley. These are my contacts. I'll put them in the chat as well. If anything at all has intrigued or raised your interest, please get in touch. I'm very happy to answer your questions, and thank you very much for listening. Back to you, Ashley.
Thanks very much, Ken. Thank you. I think, again, Ken's presentation has kind of reinforced this cross-sectoral application and the opportunities that exist from kind of looking at the sectoral opportunities. And as Ken said, use the chat box to get in touch. If you get any questions for any of the speakers or for ourselves at LDS, then use the chat box to kind of share those and we can pick them up and answer them directly. Thanks, Ken. So just moving on to our 3rd speaker, we have Tracy Ward from Scottish Enterprise. Tracy is an innovation and collaboration funding specialist. So Tracy, I'll hand over to you now to present the support that's available from SE.
That's great. Thanks, Ashley. And hello to everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm not in the Netherlands. I am in the office today. So I'm actually quite conscious of my voice. Usually I feel quite free in my home office, but today I'm a bit more self-conscious. So thank you for your time this morning. I've got 10 slides and I just kind of want to run through just a high level the support that is available through our team at Scottish Enterprise, which is the Innovation, Collaboration and Funding team. It was previously the Collaboration, Innovation and Funding team, which was a lot easier to remember because of the kitchen cleaner. But yes, we've changed it on. So as you see in the next slide, if you could move, Ashley, our role is basically helping ambitious companies who are seeking information and looking to apply for innovation funding from a variety of sources. We've been doing this for a while, and we started with our involvement in the Enterprise Europe network, a pan-European business and technology network, and we would look at things like Horizon 2020, or even before that, the FP7 framework programme, and other funding opportunities such as Eureka Eurostars. Since then, we've looked elsewhere, we've looked closer to home, sort of influenced by a variety of factors, including Brexit, etc. But we look at a variety of funding options. So from Innovate UK, whether it's from DASA, Defence and Security, from ESA, from SBRI, the NHS, various other sources, we're looking at what opportunities are available to companies. Because we know it's a complicated landscape, we know it takes time to try and understand what's out there, whether companies are eligible, etc. So we're really there to just support those companies. And if you can move on, Ashley, there's really 2 messages or 2 core things that I want you to take away from what I'm saying today. And one is about information and one is about support. So looking at the sort of information, our aim is really to help companies help themselves as much as possible to understand what's out there. And we've developed a fairly simple and standard database of funding opportunities using Power BI. I include the links there, which you can get from the Scottish Enterprise website and also from Finding Business Support. But this includes sort of business support grants, but you can choose to look at innovation grants only there, and there's a variety. It's not exhaustive, and we would always welcome if you spot anything else, please let us know and we'll add it to it. But we do update it very regularly, and we try to be as inclusive, if you like, of the options that are there. So in addition to the database, we've got a series of webinars that we run across the year, and they can be on sort of specific funding programmes such as Eurostars. We may have one that's focused on one or a couple of specific funding opportunities, or we do also things that are, I would say, more horizontal to innovation funding. So it might be something like, you know, how to write a good proposal, or you know, things to consider in relation to IP. We've worked closely with our internal IP team and developed some resources there. So we run these webinars, and we pull that all together in a bulletin, which we've got the link there to sign up, which gives you the new alerts and things that are happening, and also other opportunities that are relevant to innovation funding generally. I tested that link yesterday and I was having problems, but it was on a specific browser, so it was absolutely fine in Chrome. So just in case you're having problems, if you do use that link, just be aware that it could be a browser issue. Moving on, Ashley, please. So our focus is really looking at funding external to Scottish Enterprise, so casting our eye wide and casting the net wide, if you like. But there are opportunities within Scottish Enterprise as well. And in brackets there, I've got the applying for space data to the net zero economy competition, which closed yesterday, I believe. And I'm hoping that some of the companies on the call today may have actually applied towards that, to that. But we also have our Smart Scotland feasibility funding, which is aimed at high risk, ambitious projects. Rate of intervention depends on the size of the company, and it's up to 100k max. So, you know, it would encourage companies to contact us if these things are of interest. We're taking more a call-based approach. Whether there's other ones in this specific area, the space data area, I don't have visibility of that at this stage, I'm afraid, but yeah, keep your eyes open. So moving on, when we're looking at the funding options, I suppose we've spoken about you know, relevant calls and whether they are you know, specific to the geospatial space or what. We look wider than that, and we look at open calls as well. And some of the things that we would typically look at would include innovation, Innovate UK Smarts, or the EIC Accelerator, Eurostars. It's all bottom-up funding calls. The relevance to you as a company will depend on a lot of things. Ken referred to the TRL levels previously, but it also could be, you know, are you interested in a collaborative project? Are you interested in an international collaborative project? Things like that. I would put health warning up with something like the EIC Accelerator at the moment. This is a European one, and at the moment, UK companies, the UK wants to associate with the Horizon programme, yes. But the Treasury guarantee that's in place for UK applicants to European calls has been extended recently to the end of this year, but there's not a lot of window for that, and we don't know what the future holds there. So I would consider these things, but you know, take it with a note of caution. Eurostars is slightly different. It's a nice little programme which is aimed with a couple of, so it's aimed at companies at the earlier TRL level, so sort of 4 or 5. and it is intended to foster international collaboration. So you need a minimum of a couple of partners who both have to meet the criteria of their individual companies. But 60% intervention there, up to 360k euros for SME partners. So we would look at things like that, and then moving on to the next slide, please, Ashley, we would look at other specific, perhaps more relevant, and the theme that's coming across is it's not just about geospatial, it's looking at calls that might include opportunities for that. So I've just highlighted a couple there that could, with further exploration, be relevant. So the Farming Innovation Programme, for example, it was looking at significant industry challenges and opportunities in a number of sub-sectors, which include livestock, plants, food production, bioeconomy and agroforestry. So I thought that's bound to be of interest and relevance to the group here. And the DASA Rapid Impact as well, which is an open looking at the defence and security sector, but there's nothing to say that with further exploration that might not be an opportunity. So I've spoken about the information. Moving on to the next slide, I want to speak about the support that we offer. The information aspect, as I say, is open to everyone to look at. The support's a wee bit more hands-on, and we are typically working with companies who typically in the 210 to 250 space, but that's not, I would encourage you, if you don't fit into that space, but you fit the other things that I'm speaking about here, then please do talk to us, because we're interested in good projects, great impact, and we're keen to talk. So yeah, companies of that size, where they're market orientated R&D projects, so it's all about the route to commercialisation. Ideally, we're looking for companies who have engaged with their potential customer group, not necessarily have a, sign on the dotted line agreement, but have, really promising feedback. And yeah, that's important. But also what's important is the company must be in a confident place to match the funding. Very few of the calls are 100% funding, with the exception of SBRI, which are more sort of grant contract based, and they can be 100%, but generally they're 70%, 60% or whatever. So having the additional funding is important. And we also ask companies to share the results. So if we're helping you, then please let us know if you've been successful or otherwise. And we typically ask for you to complete a questionnaire at the very beginning of an interaction, which is really high level, but it's just aimed to sort of tease out those elements. Have you spoken to the customer? What do you understand about your competition, etc.? So moving on to the next slide, please, Ashley. These are the kind of key areas where we do support. So in addition to the self-serve, we would do a bit more hands-on, looking for identifying the funding opportunities, and we would have a chat around fit to call as well. And that would include things like the TRL level. It could be, Ken's mentioned, with the ESA funding, the importance of having a space asset in the project. So there's various things that you need to make sure, and we would always encourage companies to, most of these competitions have briefings, get involved, read, look at the briefings, make sure you understand. I would also say that in terms of where a call is more open and you are wondering whether this fits or whether there's a kind of high level theme, but you're wondering whether your specific would fit, I would always encourage you, for Innovate UK, for example, to contact the help desk and double check before you invest a lot of time into that writing process, because it's a long process. I'm going to come back to point 3, which is around the toolkit and resources, but I just wanted to, and the other 2, but I just wanted to pick up on that last point there, which I've mentioned about partnering and links to other opportunities. So through our involvement with Innovate UK Edge, which Carol referred to earlier on, our team is contracted to deliver these services in Innovate UK Edge services in Scotland. But through our involvement in that and access to tools such as the Enterprise Europe Network, we have an ability to find partners for projects with enough time, because it takes time there. But I'm going to pop in the chat later on an opportunity at the moment, or a company in the Barcelona region that's actively looking for partnerships at the moment. We've got a very close relationship with our equivalent in Catalonia. So I'll pop that after I've spoken and have a look and see if that's of interest, because I'd be happy to introduce you if it was. But the other opportunities would be things like Carol's mentioned also, so the Innovate UK Edge opportunities. They run global business innovation programs, so specific technology and market visits to specific geographies, focus on specific technology areas. I know there has been one in agri-tech. There could be other ones that are of interest. So it's these sorts of things that we're there to try and link companies up to. I'm just going to speak a couple of minutes about some of the toolkits and resources that we've developed, which is outlined on the next slide. And that's really there. Some of it is really basic and simple stuff, but it really helps at times if, you know, a company with limited resources doesn't have, you know, an infographic to show the trajectory of its innovation. Then, you know, we've got tools there that you can happily use and happily tap into. So there's one there which is basically helping you articulate, if your funding application allows for these sorts of things, to articulate the difference between what you're proposing, the state of the art, and, you know, the rest of the competition. I refer to the webinars, and we've got most of those are recorded, and I would, you know, encourage you to look. I find the IP and innovation one, working with our IP team, particularly useful. Actually, I learned a lot from doing that. But there's also other resources within Scottish Enterprise that we can pull in. So we have a fantastic market research team. So if you're developing an application but you don't have all the info to support your argument and what you're saying in terms of the market, we've got a research team that can help fill in some of those gaps. The IP team, as I say, fantastic in helping you consider some of the IP things for your application, but more importantly for your business more widely. And there's other services and teams across the organisation that can help as well, whether it's on the international side of things as well. And then the aim of that really is to use all those resources and help companies develop the strongest proposal that they possibly can to increase their chances of a successful submission. So two things that we offer, which is outlined in the final slide, is a proposal review service and our interview or pitch prep. So what we do, assuming there's plenty of time, we take a completed draft application and we get various pairs of eyes to cast their, you know, a look over the application. When I say cast, it's more than a cast. It's actually an in-depth review. It's not a cast. And we try and be your critical friend at this point and pull out some suggestions for improvement, which tend to be on, you know, the same themes tend to come out. It's about quantifying and qualifying what your statements are. It's about showing your market appetite. It's about, you know, being explicit about your IP position. There are certain themes that do come out, but we take on an individual basis, and we use not just our team, but we pull in other people with particular expertise across the organisation as well. And for those funding competitions where there is an interview stage as well, we do a mock interview, and that picks up various things. You know, we try and second guess what an assessor or an interviewer is likely to ask a company. And but it also picks up things like, I did a prep with a company, and it was in their bedroom. Well, I wasn't in their bedroom, let me be clear. They were in their bedroom, the bed was unmade, the dressing gown was hanging up, but it's some of these softer things that you might not think about because you're so focused on that. So we try and run that in a mock environment and pull out some suggestions for improvement. And that kind of summarises what we do. We have been successful for the 2021 to 2022 period, we assisted companies to achieve about £4.5 million in grant funding on project costs of £5.1 million, and obviously we're doing the same for this year. So it just gives a flavour. We are not doing it, the company's doing it, but we like to think, and based on feedback, that we are adding value. So if you are interested in this service, of course there's the information side of things, but if you think that you're a fit for the support side of things and we can help you, then please do contact us. My email is on the very first page of this presentation, but I'm giving you also the general Scottish Enterprise inquiries because your call will be routed to the right team, and it helps sort of yeah, it helps manage things. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope that's of some interest to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. That's super. Thank you. I think just to kind of reiterate all the points that have been raised and references to links and whatnot, we'll share all of them. I believe they're also being dropped into the chat by the LDS team, but after today's webinar, we'll send out a kind of wee post-event email, and that will have a number of resources in there that you can follow up with. I think Tracy's presentation has just kind of highlighted not only the funding side of it, but that hands-on support, and that's something that's really, really important, certainly from the companies that we've been working with through Location Data Scotland, but more broadly in my role as a consultant at Optimat. It's understanding the process that often takes most time, and if you've got an organisation like SC that are willing to kind of hold your hand through that, then I think that would be really, really valuable for a lot of the organisations. SE is obviously one of the funding partners for Location Data Scotland, so again we've got close ties into the teams within SE as well, so we can facilitate the connections in there, and obviously Tracy shared her direct details as well, but we can facilitate those connections as well. So just to move on now to the final section of this morning's webinar, and this is really about how best to prepare a funding application. So the panellists have obviously shared some insights into the types of funding that's available. Tracy began to touch upon the support side of it, but now it's about hearing from, based on their experience of being on the other side of the fence, what top tips they would share with you all. So I'll invite each of the panellists along, and what we'll do now is we're basically going to have a kind of quick fire top tips from each of the panellists. So each panellist has 5 top tips. We'll run through one by one the first ones and have a bit of a chat. If there's any questions that come from that, again, please use the chat box to raise any questions or ask or to raise any comments, sorry, or to ask any questions. So just to kick things off, Tracy, do you want to share what your first top tip would be for preparing a funding application?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you see me? I can't see myself just now, so I'm just wondering if I'm putting it right. That's fine.
Yeah, I can see you.
That's fine. I'd rather not see myself. Anyway, I suppose I'm reiterating what I said there. My first top tip would be about ensuring that there is a fit with the call in question. There's absolutely no point in busting a gut to write an application proposal if it's not a fit for the call. So there's practical stuff there. It's about the TRL level. Are you the right, type of organisation? Sometimes it might be looking for, organisations of a specific type, social enterprise, for example. You're the right fit in that respect. And then in terms of the thematic side of things, it's making sure that what you're proposing fits. I would again encourage look at the competition, read all the paperwork or the bump associated with the call, get yourself involved with the briefings. They're usually recorded so you can catch up at a later point. But yeah, make sure it's a fit for the call.
Great, thanks, Tracy. And Carol, what would your first top tip be for preparing an application?
I suppose my first top tip would be to ensure that your innovation is central to the development described in your application. I also very much agree with what Tracy says in terms of checking the scope as well. So I would I would build it on what Tracy's already said and say, you know, clearly check the scope, but also make sure that innovation part is really central to what you're proposing. If you are in doubt, for Innovate calls, for those that have a particular focus, for instance, it's often possible to request a scope check via our customer support service. That's a check of a high level, perhaps offering, you know, you sending in a paragraph summarising your project. So, you know, do use that if you're in doubt.
Great, thanks, Carol. And Ken?
Relevant to the ESA funding, but probably everything else in a more general way, is if you are solving that problem, you have to demonstrate that it's worth solving rather than it's a problem that's been in your head. And so providing external validation of the need for this problem, which can come through the figures you're going to provide for a commercial demand, is key. So it's got to be something that is really worth solving, and that's it.
Great. And Tracy, your second top tip?
Yeah, I would be, well, there's a general and there's a more specific one there. I had answered the IP questions fully, but this is relevant to everything. A funding application usually has good guidance on with questions. Read the questions, but in respect to the IP side of things, make sure you're thinking about it in its widest sense. So, you know, do you have a really good understanding of the technology? Can you demonstrate that you've done a search to ensure that you have the rights to do that? Looking at your contracts side of things, have you got evidence that you know, in terms of your staff, your contractors, etc., that you're quite clear about your position. Again, I'll point you to the webinar that was recorded. It isn't long, and I particularly found it helpful. So, yeah.
Great. And Carol, over to you for top tip number 2.
Yes, so I would also suggest the importance of conveying the business case for your development, and also demonstrating your knowledge of the market opportunity. So we, you know, at Innovate, and I think this applies widely anyway, but you know, we are seeking innovative developments that can be successfully exploited. So I think, you know, it's really important to convince the assessors that, you know, there is logic to the business case, and that you have a clear understanding of your market opportunity.
Great. And Ken?
Again, maybe unique to the ESA part, and one part of your 8-page questionnaire asks you about the space assets you're going to use. So you must have knowledge of the source and the use of the space assets. So it's not good enough just to say ESA will help me, because ESA is very, very busy. So you must, as part of your application, demonstrate that you know a little bit about where the data is coming from, or whatever asset you're going to do is coming from, and that is something a lot of people don't do. So that's my tip number 2.
Great, thanks, Ken. And Tracy, back to you for number 3.
Yep, I would say please don't make a general statement that we're the only person in the world doing this without it being substantiated. Please demonstrate that you have a good understanding of the competition, and here's your USP. And then you can claim that you're the only person in the world doing it, but please no general statements.
Great. Carol?
Yes, and so I'd also say that if your development requires partners, whether those be academic or businesses, it's wise to find those partners that share your vision and approach, and to do so as early as possible in the process. And if you need help in this area, you know, do contact the KTN and all the opportunities for support in the area. For reference, the KTN do have a specialist in the geospatial sector, and other specialists in other sectors, so they can also be helpful in getting connections that you might be looking for.
And just to add to that, actually, you mentioned Luca Badello earlier in LDS. We're connected really closely with Luca and the team there, so again, we can facilitate those connections, and then you can build on that relationship to tap into the opportunities that exist through the KTN as well. Great. And Ken?
Number 3. Again, we talked about problem, space data, market opportunity. Demonstrate your knowledge of the market opportunity. You have only a very short form to put this in, and it's okay to reference other docs, but demonstrate that you know the potential for the market, and also express all market values in terms of UK, Europe, because it's great to say, well, the market for the world is so many $1 billion, but that's not relevant. This money, our money, ESA's money, is focused on UK, Europe. So, and also, if you have a client already engaged, or a client who is has expressed interest and said, yes, I'd buy this, get that organization lined up as well as part of your application, so that if you get invited to pitch, it's a real nice story to say, we're going to do this really cool thing. This client sitting next to me would buy it. That's a really convincing narrative.
Yeah, great. And Tracy, number 4 for you?
Yeah, building on what Carol said about the time for finding partnerships, I would say don't underestimate the time it takes to do an application. And you can see various estimates of how long it would take to do, for example, an Innovate UK Smart. But I think draft, redraft, review, redraft, review, submission. Just don't underestimate how long that would add. And I would add to that also, if there are various people in the organisation that are contributing to that, then sometimes it takes longer to make it sound as if it's one narrative and one story. Sometimes it can sound a bit disjointed. So factor that in if there are other people adding to, for example, the technical aspect or the business aspect. So time.
No, I think that's a key one. It's going back to my day job as a consultant. We do a lot of work supporting companies both to write the applications, but also on the evaluation side. And I think that's the time is the thing that's probably most underestimated. You see the deadline date and you think, okay, that's weeks away. But the reality is you're going to have multiple iterations. You're going to have teams who are busy. So the time factor is huge. I think it's really, really critical. And Carol, your 4th tip?
Yes, so just to add to that very important point, I'd also just like to say that because Innovate UK funding is awarded via a competition model, with obviously with these finite timeframes, there are a few other related tips, and that is, obviously to look out for relevant competitions, so keep your eye out, and then when applying, and this may sound obvious, but please do answer the questions clearly. So, answer the question that's being asked and do so as clearly as possible. And also, do demonstrate the knowledge that you have, because don't assume that the assessor will necessarily know that you have that knowledge. So do demonstrate it, and in relation to those questions that are being asked.
Okay.
Very good point. The capacity in our little short form, you must make a point of making sure that you have the capacity to deliver the project. We all realize you have other things to do. We all do, and we are very realistic about timelines, and that your team is also trying to get revenue in to pay the wages and whatever. But make sure that you demonstrate that you have the capacity to deliver the project. Otherwise, the confidence of the assessors will be slightly undermined.
Great. And Tracy, back to you for your final and 5th tip.
Yeah, my final point, I suppose, builds on what Ken was saying about the target market, and it's not just about showing the overall value of the market from a Frost and Sullivan report or whatever. It's showing specific knowledge there, and I think also where you sit within the value chain, so showing a good understanding of the value chain, and how the route to market and how you will actually deliver it.
And Carol?
Yes, so, and my final tip goes back to the point already made about time, and to sort of add to that, I would say do make sure that you submit in plenty of time. So don't leave it to the very last minute, because we have had, you know, unfortunate examples where people, their internet has gone down at the last minute, or all sorts of things that can happen. So, you know, again, just to make the point about time, and allow also some time to just proofread the application. That can be really valuable. So yes, time is a key point.
Yeah, just to build on that, the submitting in time, a lot of the portals allow you to kind of upload a version so that you've got one that's sitting there ready to go. You can be working on an offline version and then reload it, but if you've got that at least one draft version there, just in case you did have any technical difficulties. I know that ourselves at Optimat, that's what we quite often do, where you've got a version that's sitting on the portal ready to go. And Ken, your fifth and final top tip?
Final tip, something I didn't say at the beginning, the money from European Space Agency is not a grant, it's a procurement contract. And as I did mention, in the UK, most of it is supported to 50% of the project value. The source of your co-funding must be described in initially very, very general terms, but the key thing it cannot be is other public money. So your co-funding can be investments, it can be savings, it can be cash from sales, but not other public money. So again, be clear on your source of co-funding, and there isn't much space to put it all in, but we're here to help you do that properly. That's my final tip.
Great, thanks very much. I hope all those points have been valuable and useful for you when you do approach the kind of next funding application in terms of the preparation. I think just to kind of finish on the top tip side of things, I think the key point is that, as well as looking for what the funding opportunities are, it's about seek support from the agencies, whether that's the help desk at Innovate UK, whether that's Tracy's team at Scottish Enterprise. Ken's already said there's support available from both himself and also from ESA, and likewise use LDS to get an understanding of what evaluators are really looking for from funding applications. Seeking that support early on is going to make you kind of stand in a better position going in to an application, rather than, again, the time thing. If you leave it too late, then there won't be time to get that support, and then you'll be chasing your tail in terms of the submission. The support exists, so tap into it. If you don't know where to go for it, come through LDS and we can signpost you to the agencies and networks that are available to provide that hands-on support. Just to kind of summarise and close off on today's webinar, I'm conscious that we're kind of running quite closely to the deadline of time. The three speakers this morning have presented a whole range of opportunities that are available for funding. I think the key message that's came through over and over again is think outside the box. Don't necessarily just look for a geospatial tagged funding opportunity. Look at the sectoral opportunities that there could be either space or geospatial applications for, because there's probably a greater volume of those opportunities, but also in terms of the success and the hands-on availability, they're going to be greater too. So think outside the box when you're looking for funding opportunities. There's a range being suggested this morning. On the LDS website, we have links within our resources area to a range of competition pages. We also share funding calls that we're aware of through our LinkedIn channels. So again, if you're not already part of the group and not following us on LinkedIn, then do so, because we do share a lot of information there. We work with a whole range of network organisations like those that have come along to present today, so we can facilitate those connections and highlight where the opportunities lie. But likewise, we can signpost you to the support that's available from them, and we've already kind of mentioned what is available in terms of the support. And Tracy's highlighted in detail what's available purely from the SE side of things as well. But more broadly, use LDS. That's what we're here for. We are working very much in this network and networks approach, so we can signpost, we can provide support in terms of what the funding opportunities are, but we can also signpost you to potential collaborative partners when you want to build consortiums, and we can also signpost you to broader support that's available as well. So please do use us, and we're here to build a community, but also to enable economic growth. And as I said right at the start, that's economic growth both in terms of Scotland, but also economic growth for your individual businesses. That's the whole idea behind LDS, is that we can build this community and unlock the value of location data. Just to finalise the webinar today, a few calls to action from our side of things. If you haven't already, please do go and get your organisation listed in the location data directory. I highlighted the benefits earlier. We can help you tap into potential new customers, we can help you find suppliers, we can help you find partners, we can signpost you to opportunities, but we can only do that if we've got a relationship with you and you're part of that directory. So please do go and do it. Like Ken's emphasised, the process for doing that is similar to the ESA application. It's very short, it's painless, so I would encourage you all to do that. Likewise, as I mentioned, we are now moving into year 3 of Location Data Scotland, so we'll be pulling together what our plans are in terms of events and so on. So if you do have any ideas either for thematic areas that you would like us to consider for events, and or if there's any other types of events that you have an interest in, then please do get in touch. We want the community, this community is for you, so we want it to meet your needs. So please do share any ideas with you. And again, a kind of final plug for LinkedIn. We want it to be an engaging and kind of interactive community. We can only do that through your participation. So if you haven't already, join the LinkedIn group, follow us on LinkedIn, because that's where we share lots of information and lots of links to valuable resources for you. Just to kind of close on today's webinar, I would just like to thank our 3 fantastic speakers for their time this morning, and hope that you've all found it really valuable. As I mentioned, we will follow up the webinar with a kind of follow-up email. Within that, we'll share all the resources that's been highlighted this morning with links and whatnot. There'll also be a recording of today's webinar available on the LDS website in the next few weeks, so you'll be able to go on and re-listen if you want to kind of refresh your memory on some of the points that were raised. But for now, thank you all very much for coming along, and again, thank you to our wonderful speakers for giving up their time and sharing their insights in terms of not only the pipeline of funding that's available, but also their top tips, which will undoubtedly help you all when you go to prepare your next application. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon. Thanks then. Bye bye.